Hey there, welcome to Our Herd, the Toledo Zoo's official podcast. This is part 2 of a 2-part episode called Conservation Without Borders. If you haven't had a chance to listen to part 1, we encourage you to go back and listen to that part before continuing with this episode. If you're a new listener, welcome. We're so excited to have you here, and we can't wait for you to delve into some amazing topics and conversations that we get to have with our Toledo Zoo staff and adjunct biologists working all around the world. We hope you've enjoyed this episode so far, and looking forward to hearing the rest of our conversation with Joe Wood.
So the cheer pheasant is going great, and it's going so well that what we've now done is expand the project out. We're now also working with the Biodiversity Conservation Society of Nepal, BioCOS Nepal, and we've got a new project with them and with NOU, and it's called Conservation Round the Dhaulagiri. The Dhaulagiri is a mountain. I believe it's 7th highest in the world. It sits at the centre of this landscape, and so we are working on the conservation of species around that mountain. Hence, conservation around the Dhaulagiri. So we're continuing with the cheer pheasant work. But what we're also doing now through BioCOS is work with snow leopards and red pandas. Now those programs are newer.
Snow leopards are Corey's
Snow leopards
favorite.
are my favorite.
So he's very excited about this.
Yes, I'm very excited to hear all this. Very exciting.
Yeah. So those programs are newer, but we're already getting some pretty exciting results from them. And something which is very basic, but it's absolutely wonderful, is that we're deploying camera traps. And so we're getting absolutely amazing footage of snow leopards. Your chances of seeing a snow leopard in person are incredibly slim. I've talked to wildlife guides in Nepal who've spent decades in those mountains and have never seen one.
Insanity. Wow. Yeah.
Incredibly cryptic, but they do show up on camera traps.
It's the ghost cat.
Yeah, they are ghosts. Again, this is a human-wildlife conflict issue largely because you have livestock herders in the area and the snow leopards predate their flocks. And that's catastrophic. And they take action against that. And that's a major threat to snow leopards. So we're working, BioCOS with our support, are working to mitigate those threats, to provide predator-proof corrals where they can have their livestock overnight, remove them from that threat. And if livestock are predated, working with local communities to allow them to access compensation funds. So the Nepali government does have money set aside for the compensation of herders who lose livestock to snow leopards. The trouble is that involves filling out quite arduous forms, lots of details that have to be submitted, and lots of these herders have quite a low standard of literacy. So we're able to support BioCOS to assist with that process and ensure that those claims are filed and everything is done as it should be and that the herders do receive that compensation. We're also doing things like distributing to these herders who are trying to make a living up in these high mountains, and just things like sleeping bags and sleeping mats and torches that improve their life hugely and then foster a more benevolent attitude to snow leopards and conservation. And red pandas, much of the same, actually. Less conflict with people, obviously. It's more of a habitat loss issue and then some hunting. But again, working with local communities, getting camera trap footage of red pandas so we can better document where they are, which, A, is important, and B, is wonderful to see these amazingly cute animals in the wild.
Sounds like heaven on earth.
Sounds like you need to go.
It sounds like the favorite place in the world that I've never been to.
Literally.
So I think it must be one of my favorite places in the world that I have been to. So I've been to a huge range of countries now under my role with the zoo. Nepal in May, when the rhododendrons are blooming, that must be heaven on earth. It's quite staggering. It's
incredible.
Incredible snow-capped mountains, and then below them these valleys, which are just a sea of colour with all the rhododendron, and then amazing bird life and things like snow leopards and common leopards, bears, pandas. It's quite a place.
And it sounds like, too, that their communities are pretty enthusiastic and they value education. It's just a matter of getting them those resources and those education materials.
Yeah, the buy-in we've had from those communities has been amazing. And Nepal as a culture is also an incredible place. Mm-hmm. Please do go if you get the chance.
I most certainly will make my way over there.
He's saving up in his piggy bank.
Yes. Any other things that we're dabbling in or programs that we're getting invested in now?
We're constantly dabbling.
Right.
Always dabbling.
What do we not have our fingers in? Yeah.
No, as I say, we really pride ourselves on that agility. And But in terms of big things we've got going on right now, one important one to mention is gorillas in Cameroon. So we've now got a relatively new partnership with Limbe Wildlife Centre in Cameroon. Across that region of Africa, a long list of animals are hunted for their meat. And that means that the juveniles of some of those species are orphaned. And some of those orphans have value in the pet trade. Gorillas are one. So there's this facility in Cameroon at a place called Limbe, where they have a group of gorillas, or several groups of gorillas, all of which were, or most of which, were orphaned as a result of that trade. And were recovered from the trade, have been rehabilitated, aren't suitable for release into the wild, but are maintained there. And what we've been able to do is to work with the zoo's welfare coordinator, Beth Poster, to put in place a program, a collaboration with Limbe. So what we're doing there is, firstly, we're providing funding for improvements to the gorillas' welfare. One of the things we've most recently done is fund them to install a water tower. Their water supply is pretty erratic, and so they explained that for big chunks of time, they had no running water. If you imagine trying to run a large facility housing large numbers of animals with no running water, that's a tough day. So we've been able to provide a water tower that ensures that continuity of water supply and just basic improvements to the welfare of their gorillas there. And we've been able to work with the zoo's welfare team here, set up that collaboration and continual conversation, dialogue between the two teams, and to pass on as much of our knowledge and expertise on the welfare of captive gorillas as we can, and just to take basic steps to improve the welfare of these captive gorillas. It's a really cool project. That partnership with Limbe is going really well, and we're going to be expanding on that.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how their facilities are impacted by, our assistance and our help.
I'm very excited about this. Well, your favorite is like the snow leopards. I'm a big great ape lover.
I can tell.
And so
your best friend is Fajar. He's an orangutan.
Yeah, he is. We're tight. But I really got to speak a lot with Tori and Jerry from these projects, and they're just so excited about everything and getting them to come here. And they got to meet our troop of gorillas, and introducing them to Beth in person for the first time was really exciting. So I'm also I'm looking forward to the future of that project.
And what's going on with Crocodile Monitors is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, so this is a new one. This is what I'm very excited about. As I said earlier, mostly a bird guy. There are some other animals I get really excited about. Monitor lizards are one. Absolutely love them. And they're like small velociraptors. They're incredibly intelligent animals. And of course, it's the group which includes the Komodo dragon. Komodo dragon, big impressive animal, obviously the largest lizard in the world in terms of bulk. There is a species that makes them look tame, and it's called the Crocodile Monitor. It lives in rainforests of Papua New Guinea and some of the neighbouring countries as well. We have them in the zoo's collection, and they're currently off display. They will be displayed in the new reptile house.
Cannot wait for that.
That's going to be so cool.
Yep.
They're very cool. I recommend Googling Komodo dragon Crocodile Monitor skull comparison, because Komodo dragons have fairly sizable teeth. Crocodile monitors have enormous fangs.
Oh my
gosh. Wow.
That'll chomp you up real good.
So Komodo might be larger, but those teeth are,
way bigger.
Nothing to mess with.
Much bigger. And there's actually some thought that some individual crocodile monitors might be longer than Komodo dragons. Most of that length is tail. These are arboreal lizards. They're up in the canopy. They've got a very long tail to help them move around up there.
Okay.
But in terms of overall total length, there are some crocodile monitors that may be longer than Komodos, and then they've got that hardware on the front end.
That's
hardware. That's one way to put it.
Honestly, that might be even more intimidating than Komodos, because Komodos usually stay on the ground.
Yeah.
Whereas these crocodile monitors
like
are
puppy dogs
in the air.
Oh my gosh.
Trees and whatnot.
Anyway, we've been looking for ways that we might get involved in the conservation of crocodile monitors. And what we've just done is to fund a preliminary study, like the first step towards a more in-depth investigation into their status and conservation in Papua New Guinea. So we've got a researcher that we funded out in the field. In fact, he today sent me his initial report on his findings. And he managed to find crocodile monitors up in the Torricelli Mountains, where he's been working. Already got some fascinating insights into their biology. And yeah, as I say, that's the first step in a longer term project with them. I mean, those forests are also full of all kinds of other weird and wonderful things. Tree kangaroos.
Tree kangaroo, looking that up. Oh, it's cute.
Oh, I've seen these guys before.
Oh,
okay.
it's adorable.
Okay.
They are in zoos.
So cute.
They're great. They're also incredibly clumsy.
Stop They're so cute. Okay.
There's also a giant eagle in those forests. Things like harpy eagles and the Philippine monkey-eating eagles that get all the press. There's also a Papuan harpy eagle, which is a giant and very strange eagle. There's some thought they might actually be a terrestrial predator as well. They might hunt on the ground. A whole load of really fascinating things in that forest, and I think there's a lot of other interesting stuff might come out of that project.
You could find a dinosaur in there.
There are dinosaurs in there.
There's a whole
you got the
dinosaur.
crocodile monitors.
Well, there are cassowaries in there, which I maintain are dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Yes,
they are.
We do have
Yes, they
cassowaries. Oh my gosh. All coming back to what you said in the beginning of when you were a kid and living under the bridge and on your friend's couch, and you're like, I love, like, and you were working in a zoo, but you're like, I'm seeing a disconnect of zoos holding these animals, saying they're going to help conserve them in the wild, but you weren't seeing it. So you took it upon yourself and you're like, I'm going to find a place where I can do this. And this entire conversation just proves that, you know, especially with the Toledo Zoo is, yes, we have this wonderful place where people and families can come and enjoy themselves and see animals and get a good corn dog and then maybe go out, ride the carousel. But then there's people like Joe out in the world doing these incredible things to help preserve these species.
Yeah. Did little Joe ever imagine like himself in this spot where you're at today? Like, is that kind of what you imagined for yourself?
It is what I imagined for myself.
Very cool. You don't
That's
get to
good.
hear that too often.
No,
you honestly
no.
don't.
It is. Looking back, I now realize how very unlikely it is that I've actually ended up in that position.
You
Yeah.
made it happen though, man.
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, me and the Toledo Zoo made it happen. But yes, I get to bridge that gap between zoos and in situ conservation. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm
Good.
going to stick here.
The more I work here at the zoo and the more people I get to talk to, such as yourself, I can kind of see exactly like where zoos can fit in when it comes to wildlife conservation.
Mhm.
And I know that a lot of people struggled with that, including yourself. You know, you talk about how you struggled with zoos and how they relate to conservation and actually affecting the wild. So from the experience that you have with Toledo Zoo, what kind of sets our zoo apart from others, or maybe even just how zoos were run in the past, as to how we're actually impacting wildlife in a global setting?
I mean, this is a realization I think a lot of people are now coming to, but Toledo Zoo are absolutely there. I think what's good about us is that we've realized that, I mean, there are many ways in which zoos impact conservation. I think one of the very best things that we can contribute is expertise. Because the hard truth is that the wild ecosystems, many of them are now in very, very poor shape. What they need is intensive management. And the animals that live in them require intensive management if they're to be saved. We can't just sit back now and leave them to it because they'll go. We need to be able to enact very, very targeted conservation measures. And zoos are in a wonderful position in that they're sitting on this huge bank of knowledge and skills relating to the intensive management of animal populations. So what we're able to do here at Toledo is to take some of those skills and apply them to the wild. That's a big part of what we do. And I think that is a huge thing.
Something that comes to mind most recently was all that work that you had done with the blue-eyed ground dove. We didn't even get to talk about that much, and we really should, because I think this is a good one to describe, because that's technically what had happened with these other teams down in Brazil, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The blue-eyed ground dove is actually quite an interesting one. One of the things that we're really very good at is establishing and managing captive populations of very delicate pigeon and dove species. So a good example involves a bird called the pink-necked fruit dove. So Jeff will tell you all about the pink-necked fruit dove. It's one of the species that was very inspired him in his conservation journey. They were brought into AZA collections in the mid-1980s, and they initially did fairly well. They were held by several different organizations. They were bred, more birds were brought in from the wild. Population peaked at around 45 individuals in the mid-1990s. And then they started to tail off. So there was this gradual decline over a couple of decades. And by 2011, there were only 11 birds left. And it was looking quite likely that they would be extinct as a captive population in the US. And Jeff decided he wasn't having that. So he had those remaining 11 birds consolidated at the Toledo Zoo. He had the various different holders send their birds to us. And we made an institutional commitment to recovering that population and maintaining them long term, which is what we did. And by, I think it's 2021. So bearing in mind that there were 11 birds in 2011, 2021, 10 years later, there were 107.
My goodness.
Yeah, it was really intensive.
And I've seen these birds.
Amazing work.
There's a lot of them.
There are so
we
many.
have a lot of those.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. But you learn a lot from that.
We learned an awful lot from them. And one of the things that our team here learned, how to intensively manage a population, how to grow it that fast. And one of the strategies that we used to do that was hand rearing of chicks. The pigeons and doves pretty poor parents, honestly.
Dang it.
I've seen their nests. I mean, if you could call it a nest sometimes.
The average pigeon's idea of a nest is a couple of twigs balanced on a branch.
They're trying their best.
They're doing their
Little brain.
Yeah.
as much as they can.
And then they lay quite small clutches of eggs. So no more than 2 in any pigeon or dove species. In the case of fruit doves, it's just 1. And they can't expect to lose them. So most nests in the wild will fail. They'll be predated, they'll be lost to other causes. And so as a result of that, the pairs, they breed in monogamous pairs. And so pairs are quite quick to abandon a nest which they believe to be compromised. They think this isn't working. They'll just
give up.
Just jump ship, leave it up.
We can try again.
Exactly. And they'll try again. They'll cycle again. And this means that in captivity, there's potential to radically increase your output of chicks by either salvaging eggs or chicks that would otherwise be lost and hand rearing those, or intentionally removing eggs to encourage the pairs to lay again. So you can really ramp up your output from any individual pair by using those techniques. It's not an easy thing to do. So pigeons and doves are notoriously difficult to hand rear. In fact, for many years, that was thought to be impossible, particularly for the small species.
I mean, some of these are like the size of your pinky nail.
Yeah, absolutely tiny. And they also hatch in a very underdeveloped state. So little tiny pink squirming things. So that's one reason why they're very difficult to hand rear. The other is that they've adapted to feed on a substance called crop milk, which is a high fat and it's high protein secretion, which is produced by the lining of the parent's crop, which is a sac which they have in their throat to hold food. They're not absolutely unique in that as birds. So there are some other groups that produce crop milk. So all flamingos do it, as do male emperor penguins. But it's quite unusual. It's actually one of the reasons why feral pigeons, so the pigeons you might see on the sidewalk, are so successful as an urban species, because they can eat your garbage and turn that in their bodies into this very nutritious substance.
Feral? That was a great word to use for these little creatures.
That's crazy.
That's what they're called.
It's just like that pigeon species is like garbage disposals, basically.
Exactly. So they take in all the rubbish and they're able to produce in their own bodies this stuff, which is actually pretty similar to mammalian milk, and use that to raise their chicks.
Very interesting. Look at that.
What a great parent.
Just cleaning up the streets of New York or whatever big city that they might be in and feeding their kids with it.
Yeah. So great for them, but it makes them quite difficult, very difficult to hand rear.
Wow.
There's no exact substitute for crop milk, and you have to have a very specific technique to be able to feed these tiny chicks in the same way that their parents would feed them. But Toledo Zoo have done an awful lot of work on this, and have really been leading the field in terms of developing those methods. While I was working with the Santa Cruz ground dove in Solomons, I actually started being asked to participate in conservation planning exercises for other pigeon and dove species. The feeling was that the lessons we were learning might be relevant elsewhere, which is very true. There's big overlap in terms of the conservation of different pigeon and dove species. And one of those species was the blue-eyed ground dove in Brazil. This is a stunningly beautiful species. They're like a lovely fox red and white. They've got these metallic blue dots on their wings and they've got a sapphire blue eye. Absolutely stunning. But they were very much feared to be extinct. There were no sightings for 75 years. And then in 2016, a Brazilian ornithologist having a really good day stumbled across them.
Best day of
Imagine
his
being
life.
him. Oh my gosh.
Stumbled across a tiny population of these in an area outside what was thought to be a natural range in Cerrado habitat. So this is, when most people think of Brazil, you might think of rainforest, right? But this is arid scrub.
Yeah.
Like cowboy country, cacti growing everywhere. Yeah, absolutely minute, obviously gravely threatened.
Yeah. I mean, not even being seen for 75 years, there can't be that many.
No, just really a handful. The population fluctuates. It doesn't seem to ever go much above 20. Following that rediscovery, there was the creation of a protected area around the landscape where these birds had been found. They were being monitored. They were being tracked basically full time in the wild. And there was a workshop was held in a place called Foz do Iguaçu, bird park there called Parque das Aves in southeast Brazil. But there was this workshop held, which I attended. And it was also attended by Chuck Sabini, who at the time was our curator of birds here in Toledo.
Love Chuck.
Yeah, great guy.
Great guy.
Work. Is now at the Bronx Zoo. So Chuck and I were flown out there to contribute to this discussion, as were a selection of my childhood heroes. So I actually got to go and see blue-eyed ground doves in the wild with, all of my heroes from my childhood. All the people I've been reading about were on that trip. And we saw them in the wild, a very special moment. And I was involved in this discussion. We thrashed it out over a couple of days, and the consensus that was established was that yes, we needed a captive population, we needed a captive insurance population, but that the risks involved in trying to remove adult birds from the wild were just too high.
Which is typically how it's done if there are enough, right?
It is typically how you would do that, yeah.
So you guys had to think of something else entirely.
Yeah. So the thing is that those adult breeding birds are by far the most valuable individuals in the population because they've navigated all the threats involved in hatching and surviving as a chick and learning how to forage and finding a mate and establishing a pair and establishing a territory. You need them.
Yeah.
Removing any one of those birds has a big impact on your population when it's that small. But we knew that there was this thing with the biology of pigeons and doves where many of the eggs basically disposable. There's higher rates of predation on wild nests and that pairs, as we suspected, just went down again.
I can see where this is going. I can see where this is going.
I know, this guy is.
It's cool though. I mean, it's just like you do this at Toledo Zoo and it's just like, oh, guess what we could actually do then.
Yeah. So the recommended course of action was to not touch the adult birds, but to find their nests, to harvest eggs from wild nests early in the breeding season when we could be confident the pairs would just nest again, bring those eggs into captivity, put them in incubators, hatch them out, hand rear the resulting chicks, use those as the founders of our captive population. And they knew this was a very difficult thing to do. And so the recommended first step was for their team to develop some expertise, some practical skills by working with a far more common species called the ruddy ground dove. Looks fairly similar to a blue-eyed ground dove, not quite as pretty, and it's far, far more common. So they established some breeding pairs of ruddy ground doves. They bred those. They removed the eggs. They hatched them in incubators at their park, and they attempted to hand rear the chicks. And they didn't get very far. As I say, that's no reflection on the skill of their team. This is just an exceptionally difficult thing to do, and it takes quite a long time to get there. But they were struggling, and the feasibility of that as a strategy was being reevaluated. And I was stuck in Australia, and I was looking for something that I could do. And I knew that we had this expertise in Toledo. So what I suggested to Jeff was a pretty harebrained scheme that involved me building an aviary in my garden, going to a local pet shop and buying some small dove species. So some ruddy ground doves, which we can get in Australia, some Namaqua doves, which are a South African species, and some diamond doves, which are a native Australian species. These species are all very small. So I established pairs of those, introduced them to this aviary, encouraged them to nest, removed all these eggs, put them in an incubator, and commenced my own attempts at hand rearing, while also caring for my very newborn son.
We got all the babies.
Literally.
So my wife thought I'd completely lost the plot. I was tinkering around with these horrible pink swerving birds when I was meant to be looking after the baby. Anyway, I was working very closely with the Toledo Zoo bird team. So I spent a lot of time pestering our keepers, like getting them to send me any shred of information that might be at all relevant or useful, and just documenting it all, just trying to thrash out some guidelines that we could use. And then trying to apply those to these chicks, which I had. And there was a fair bit of trial and error, but eventually I was able to work out a method that was consistently successful. So I could get all these chicks through. And I compiled this exhaustive set of guidelines, and I shared them with all the stakeholders. But I also stressed something which I'd always suspected. I mean, it's so difficult. It's more of an art than a science. So if you're trying to follow a very rigid protocol, that's not going to work. What you need to be able to do is read the chicks. And it's almost like an intuition. You need to be able to look at what the chick is doing, how it's behaving, and interpret that behavior and respond exactly appropriately. Because if you don't, you will lose them.
Wow. Yeah. I'm assuming that happens fast
Be
too.
the bird.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Just, what do you need?
Wow.
That's incredible.
And you can't learn that from a book. You can't learn it from a set of written guidelines. You can only learn it from direct experience. Anyway, passed all these guidelines on to the team in Brazil, and they were able to take those with ongoing support from me and from the Toledo Zoo bird keepers, they were able to apply that method, and they were able to successfully hand raise ruddy ground dove chicks. It was great. So we're back on track there. And then you fast forward to 2023, and there was a survey done of the wild population of blue-eyed ground doves just prior to the breeding season, which recorded just 14 individuals. So very low numbers, and it was basically concluded that it was now or never. And like, we couldn't just keep talking about the theory. We had to bite the bullet and actually try and apply this stuff. And I was asked whether I would be prepared to return to Brazil and work directly with our partners there and provide hands-on support and mentorship, guidance, just be on hand for the rearing of the first chicks that they were going to bring in. And Toledo Zoo agreed to fund that because, of course, we did. We decided it wasn't worth me going out until they had found a nest and found some eggs and harvested them. Because I didn't want to be just sitting around in Bottom Room waiting for a nest and then...
While your baby was back home waiting for you.
Yeah.
Completely valid.
So what we were going to do instead was the team were going to go to the field. They were going to try and find a nest with suitable eggs. They were going to harvest them. Then they were going to contact me. And I was going to make travel arrangements at that point.
Just on a moment's notice.
Just on a moment's notice, which ended up exactly what happened.
I'm guessing that incubation time isn't very long.
Yeah, so it's between 12 and 14 days.
Okay,
wow.
well.
So it's quite short.
Just enough time to mobilize.
Yeah, and the eggs which they ended up harvesting were already halfway through that incubation period.
Oh, great.
So
okay.
I had less than a week.
Wow. Okay.
So I threw everything together, said goodbye to my family, and I was gone for a month. And it was a tough trip because we were booking it at such short notice. So there was no direct flight. So I ended up having to do some 53 odd hour marathon by some other random South American
When
countries.
you get there, I'm sure you're not relaxing either.
No, because I arrived as the first egg was hatching. So.
Oh my God. Wow. We'll talk about good timing.
You're like, I need some coffee. Yeah. Wow.
Okay. So so you arrive when that first chick is hatching. How did all that go?
Yeah. So that was, I like to say it was one of the most nerve-wracking and rewarding things I've ever done. I think it's where my grey hairs come from. No, we arrived, first egg was hatching. So if you look at any egg, a hen's egg, you'll see it's got a blunt end and a pointed end. The blunt end is an air cell. There's an air space at the top. And so what chicks are meant to do is initially break through the internal membrane into that air cell. That's called internal pip. The second thing they do is what's called external pip, where they chip a hole through the actual shell of the egg. And then they do something called unzipping, where they'll rotate around the egg, chipping as they go until they've completed a circle. And then they'll kind of kick outwards. And those two halves of the shell will break apart, and that's how they'll hatch. Dove eggs are a bit weird. That air cell should be, in most bird species, would just be entirely filling that blunt space.
Yeah.
In doves, particularly the small species, it often is positioned more to the side, which is weird. I've no idea why that is, but that's not at all unusual with them. But still, you're meant to see the linear sequence where the chick first breaks into the air cell, and then this chick externally pipped straight away. Didn't go into the air cell, went straight through the shell.
I'm here.
He was ready to get things started.
Very low, on the wrong side, right near a major blood vessel that hadn't yet retracted.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, terrifying. We then spent 2 days watching this egg.
Just sitting there in person, just watching it?
Yeah. Trying to make a judgment call on whether or not we should intervene, because you can do something called assist hatch, where you'll actually help the chick out the egg.
Mm-hmm.
That can be necessary. It can work. It can also go catastrophically wrong, because if you screw that up and you rupture a blood vessel that's not yet retracted, the chick will bleed out instantly and you lose them.
Wow. And again, how large are these blue-eyed ground dove chicks when they're hatching?
2.14 grams. It's about
itty bitty.
It's about the size of my thumbnail.
That's like the mini Cadbury eggs.
And so you're watching this tiny little egg, and then
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Anyway, the chick did eventually hatch, and then the second one also successfully hatched. So we had 2 chicks, wonderful,
Excellent.
and they initially fed fairly well. I was there with my counterparts from Parc des Aves and Save Brazil. There's a video somewhere of me giving the first chick its first feed, and you can very clearly see that my hand is shaking.
Oh, I'm sure it's got to be a very crazy situation. But what's cool is, like, not only are you helping hand rearing these, but the staff that are there are watching you do this and doing it themselves, who I'm sure you guys may have been taking shifts along the way, but they're actively learning on this first set of chicks. Yeah,
no, absolutely right. The staff from Parc des Aves, as I say, did have some experience.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't completely green to this.
Yeah.
And they were very competent and skilled. But yes, it was very much a shared responsibility, and I was providing, we were making joint decisions about what the most appropriate course of action was. Actually, the guy that I handed over to, I was there for several weeks, and then handed over. And the guy I handed over to is called Tony Baczynski, who looks like a Viking. Tony's a great guy. He's absolutely huge, and watching him try to feed these tiny, tiny chicks was quite something.
It's incredible.
But no, we succeeded in raising both. But it wasn't smooth sailing at all. And in fact, really, really heart-stopping thing that happened, aside from the difficulty with the hatch, big killer of hand-reared dove chicks is something called crop stasis. So they've got this sac in their throat, which is called their crop. As you're feeding them, you'll see that crop filling up with the food. Crop stasis is a condition that occurs when, for some reason, that food in the crop doesn't pass through into the digestive tract, doesn't carry on, just sits there. If that's not resolved, it will ferment. You get a condition called sour crop, and the crop will blow up like a balloon. And it's a death sentence for most chicks. Whenever I'd encountered that in the chicks I'd previously tried to hand rear, I'd lost them. I'd never succeeded in bringing one back. And then I went in one morning, early morning feed, removed the chicks from the brooder, and one still had a full crop. And the crop is meant to empty overnight.
I'm sure your heart just like plummeted.
Yeah, absolutely sank. Horrible, horrible moment. So I put it back in the brooder and thought about what I was going to do, how I was going to try and tackle this. As I say, I'd never successfully saved one before. But I remembered there was a conversation I had with Chuck Sabini down at the Bronx. So I visited Chuck at the Bronx, and Chuck really did a lot in terms of developing those methods around hand raising chicks while he was at Toledo Zoo.
Yeah.
So
he was very involved in that pink neck fruit dove stuff.
Exactly right. Yeah. He was very much at the forefront of that.
Yeah.
And we went out to a bar, we had a few beers, and we discussed everything to do with
all the best ideas come from that. Yeah.
We discussed all the various facets of raising dove chicks. At the end of it, Chuck said, well, yeah, I think with raising dove chicks, the secret is you just don't let them die.
Right.
And that is true. And that's what I decided I was going to do. Like, this chick is too important. It's not going to die on me. And so I came up with a plan. And then every hour I was going back to that chick, initially just giving electrolyte solution. Because the crop's already full of food. So a little bit of electrolyte solution to keep it hydrated, and then just gently massaging the crop, trying to break up this mass of food and get it moving. And then after a few hours of that, things seemed to be improving. And by the end of the day, it seemed like things were much better. And I offered some more dilute feed. And by the next morning, the chick had a completely empty crop, back to normal. Wow. It's a slight dip in its growth rate, but it was fine.
Yeah, you're still here with us, though. That's incredible.
No, it survived and fledged and was absolutely fine.
Amazing.
Wow.
So that was, the first batch of chicks. Where are things at now with blue-eyed ground doves? How are things going?
Yeah, so it's continued to be fairly bumpy. 2024 was a bad year. The rains arrived very late, and the breeding of the blue-eyed ground doves was very much tied to the rains. So there wasn't much in the way of breeding, and what breeding there wasn't very successful. But there was one nest discovered very early in the breeding season, containing 2 eggs. One of those eggs, the embryo had already died. The other one was healthy, and that chick was hand-reared in Bottom Room by the Parc des Aves team.
Excellent.
So it wasn't a complete dud. We got one chick out of it.
Yeah.
Which was far better than nothing. And that chick was transferred to Foz de Iguaçu, and it was kept in the same facility as the 2 older ones from the previous year. Survey at the beginning of this year recorded just 11 birds.
Oh my gosh.
So
Things are getting desperate out there.
Down to the wire now. But this year went far, far better. So there were 3 more chicks successfully hand-reared in Bottom Room. So 3 more birds added to the captive population. So doubling the captive population straight off. So the 3 from the previous years and the 3 from this year. Amazing. But the real breakthrough this year has been that a breeding pair of blue-eyed ground doves, so the female from 2023, the male from 2024, they were established in an aviary at Parc des Aves, and they commenced breeding.
Nice.
And this year they have produced 9 chicks. 9 captive bred chicks.
9 chicks from that one pair?
From that one pair, from a species that at the beginning of the year had a wild population of around 11.
It cannot be understated how incredible that is. Like, it's what a milestone. That is awesome.
Yeah, no, they did me proud. I'm a very proud blue-eyed ground dove granddad.
You're a granddad at this point. Congratulations.
Yeah. Also worth flagging that 3 of those chicks would have been lost if they hadn't been hand-reared.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, 2 of them were from eggs that were laid in the coldest day of the year. Another was a chick that dropped from the nest and was hand-reared.
Wow.
So those 3 chicks were salvaged. They were saved because the team in Foz have the ability to hand-rear.
Yeah.
which is in large part thanks to Toledo Zoo.
Yeah. What
Amazing.
great mobilization on that project. What great follow through. And I'm sure we'll be working with that project for years to come here until
I'm sure we will.
Until we're seeing it back in the wild, sustaining a good population and having a safety population where it's assured, basically, right?
Yeah. I mean, what is really wonderful about my job is I get to see projects at different phases of their development.
Yep.
So with the blue-eyed ground dove, we're at the very early stages of establishing that captive population.
Mm.
In the Philippines, with the Negros bleeding heart dove, we're at entirely the other end of that. So there's been a population of Negros bleeding heart doves maintained in the Philippines since the early 1990s. There are now pretty large numbers of them held in their home range. And what we're doing is working with the Talarak Foundation to release those birds back into the wild. That's an entirely Toledo Zoo funded project. So I've been able to go out to the Philippines and see these birds that were bred in captivity out in the wild and displaying natural behaviors and back where they belong.
Yeah, I remember when we had gone there, I had traveled with you there in 2019 for a conservation workshop that you guys are making these decisions. And I remember you saying like, we have enough. There are so many in this population right now. We can look at reintroduction. And I remember that being a big focus of yours is to like get that conversation going and how like, that's amazing to see that those birds are being reintroduced and exactly what you said. It's just the opposite end of it. So these things can happen. It can happen and actual conservation can make an everlasting impact for these species.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's worth saying there was actually a fair bit of pushback around that decision.
Really?
And our standpoint as Toledo Zoo was that there was this surplus in captivity.
Mm-hmm.
The holders in the Philippines were controlling breeding because of a lack of space. So there was a potential to create an even greater surplus. And our thought was, we have this surplus. At this point, we just need to do it.
Yeah, it's a risk. But
it's a risk.
do something with it.
But if you don't try, you're guaranteed to fail.
And now look at it. Like they have a few individuals that are doing okay out there, correct?
They're doing great. So that, as I say, project entirely funded by Toledo Zoo.
Mm-hmm.
And what we've done is all the individuals that have been released have been fitted with telemetry transmitters. So we know what happens to them. Good survival rates. Amazing to see the return to natural behavior very, very quickly. And in fact, this year we had the first chick successfully hatched in the wild.
Excellent.
That chick didn't survive.
But it's another milestone. The fact that it's happening is
it's a huge milestone. And as I say, you expect the majority of wild hatched pigeon and dove chicks not to survive. That's entirely normal. But what it means is at this point it's a numbers game.
Yep.
They can live, they can survive, they can breed. We can get them back. It's just numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's going to happen. So we've gone over so many of those projects. And as everybody is listening now, like we're involved, like Toledo Zoo doesn't just stay in Toledo. Toledo Zoo is involved in many corners of the globe. How is all of this getting funded in the first place? Like all these initiatives, where are those funds coming from?
All of it comes out of the Toledo Zoo's conservation budget. None of it comes from the tax dollars that we receive as an institution. This is money which is from admissions and from other activities the zoo's involved in.
Okay, gotcha.
It is a comparatively small part of our budget,
Mm-hmm.
but the impact is huge.
Oh yeah, it's massive. I mean, just as you said, even just getting books in people's hands or just like resources or tool sets for people to use, goes a long way.
As I say, pretty simple things, but hugely valuable. And of course, hard to put a dollar value price on the expertise that we provide. Yeah,
that's very true. The way that I kind of look at all of this is, Toledo Zoo as a whole is a very solid zoo. Like as far as the zoo experience is concerned, like we're one of the top zoos in the country. We do such excellent care for our animals, and we experiment with ways to train behaviors and do things like voluntary veterinary procedures and always improving their welfare and their well-being. And then outside of that, you've got all of our local conservation initiatives, everything that we discussed with Matt. And we've gotten so much to the point where some of this stretches beyond our Ohio borders. And so then where do we go from there? We take these expertise and we translocate them into these different global projects. And through you and through all of our partners, we're able to do that in such an amazing way. So I'm just so proud to be able to work for Toledo Zoo. And I think a lot of us feel this way because in just about every way possible, we are doing as much as we can for wildlife.
Yeah, I certainly share that sentiment.
Amazing.
For everyday Toledoans, just by getting a membership every year or by buying something at the gift shop or just having lunch here or whatever, in that way, that contributes to that conservation fund, which ultimately affects not only our local species, but all these species around the globe too.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Very cool.
And if this wasn't
enough for y'all,
wasn't enough for you guys, I want to reiterate that all 3 days of our symposium were live streamed and are now living on our website and our YouTube channel, which you can go see all of our global partners speak, including Joe.
Joe, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. We love seeing you every now and then when you get to kind of come back to Toledo Zoo, and it's been a good time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Safe travels home.
Yeah, safe travels home. What's next for you? Has your family missed you?
They have. I've got an 8-month-old baby at home, and our second, who is teething and not sleeping. I think my wife is just going to hand in to me as I walk through the door.
And that's completely understandable. She's going to need that.
Well, shout out to her for holding down the fort and letting you come here.
That's the other thing. Is our families. Our families do so much for everybody who works with Toledo Zoo, and they deserve all that acknowledgement for sure.
Mm-hmm.
They do. They very much do.
Yeah, no. Well, October is almost over. Pumpkin season is almost over.
It's the worst time of year.
Literally.
I'm sorry. I love fall so much.
I will say though that like we had a really great fall season. We
really
usually
did.
get gypped by the fall weather, but we had some really beautiful days.
It's been great.
Harvest Fest went beautifully as always. And all the events that came along with Harvest Fest were also amazing. But now we are getting into our holiday season, the busiest time of year here at the Toledo Zoo, lights before Christmas. We have people flock to this event. I can't wait for it. I actually can't wait for it because I'm a Grinch and I don't like to celebrate Christmas until December 1st. But if you're not a Grinch like me and you have a heart, Lights Before Christmas opens on November 21st. Are you going to be there?
I'm going to be there.
I will be there too. And if you can't get enough of us, be sure to check out our website. There is plenty of other educational opportunities, workshops, anything you want. Check out our website.
Yep. And you know what else? What might be worth mentioning, with Lights Before Christmas and the holiday season coming around is gift giving.
Oh, yeah.
People don't realize how good of a gift that you could actually get from Toledo Zoo to give to your loved ones, your friends, your family. Things like zoo memberships, yes, but also there's things like Zoo Pals. So you can sponsor an animal at the zoo and you get like a cool little stuffed animal and a certificate and stuff that you are a Zoo Pal sponsor of this animal. So you can get that on behalf of somebody else. What are some other opportunities that we have?
You can book your grandma a behind the scenes tour with the flamingos if that's her favorite animal.
That could be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Behind the scenes tours are a great gift for your animal loving family and friends.
And I think we're about to list on our website all the animal paintings that we had done during Wild About Art. You can purchase those and give them as gifts. So there's a few of my family members that absolutely go gaga for all the animals that we have here at the zoo. So if they were to receive a painting from that animal, which might have a little poop on it, that makes it, in my opinion, that just makes it way much more valuable.
Poop on it, or food.
It might, but they make really good gifts.
They do. And just our entire e-commerce website where you can find sweatshirts and onesies for the babies and hats and beanies and glasses and literally anything you could ever want.
They're constantly adding to that collection because they actually hand it to us to photograph to put on the website. And every time that we get something, it's like, oh, this is so cute. I don't want to give it back.
Right.
This is mine now.
This is mine now. Thank you.
We just want to thank you all so much for tuning in to Our Herd, the Toledo Zoo's official podcast. We really hope you took away a lot from this one. And again, if you want to hear more about Joe, his story, the work that he does, and all of our organization partners around the globe, make sure that you go and tune in to those live recordings that we have. All of those recordings can be found on our YouTube channel currently. It's just under Symposium Live. And we're also planning to put that on our website as well. So just keep an eye out for it. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.